Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. So with that, I have great pleasure of my good friend Fabio is coming to us. He's a PhD from University of Chicago. He's an investor. He's a scholar. He's an investment fund chief strategy officer. He's got a lot of different titles, but the one thing he does have, he's real smart and a really good guy. So I'd like to bring him on, and we're going to be talking about AI. Hi, Fabio. How you doing today? You're on mute. Your mic's on mute. Hold on.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute.
I was trying to read your lips there.
Yeah, well, that's, thanks for the kind words, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm really excited to be on the show again.
So, Fabio, how did it go down? You've had quite an interesting journey, right? So, you went to University of Chicago for your PhD. How was it going from was it Luis Guido, Carleton University to the University of Chicago? Was that a shock or was it normal? What was it interesting? Other than the weather was probably a little bit colder.
Well, Chicago is not exactly the most pleasant location weather-wise. No, I enjoyed my time there. It was a very fruitful experience. Then afterwards, I went to work. After I got my PhD, I went to work for the International Monetary Fund. Then I was called by the European Central Bank for the launch of the euro. So it was the pioneering phase of the new currency. I moved then to London to work for Goldman Sachs. And later I moved to the Arabian Gulf or Persian Gulf, as you might prefer to call it, because it was the wild time of the oil boom. So I worked in Qatar, in Dubai, and my last stint there was in Oman as chief strategy officer of the Oman Investment Fund, which is a sovereign wealth fund of the Sultanate. And now I'm involved in artificial intelligence mostly because I think that this is the next big thing. I mean, it's not only me who says that, but there are a lot of issues, a lot of aspects that people might not think about yet, which will become dominant over the next few years, I would say.
Yeah, so the problem is infobesity, isn't it? There's too much data around us. In fact, in our own personal worlds, we've got about 300,000 items in our personal cloud, Fabio. The entire web in 1996 was 257,000 websites. You and I have more information on our personal cloud, the entire web. The problem is our own worlds follow the same trajectory. By that, I mean doubling every year. In 5 years with IoT, you're going to have 10 million items. How many times in the last 2 weeks has somebody said, "Hey, Fabio, I sent you a message. When did you send it?" 3 days ago. Where did you send it? To your email. Which one? I don't remember. Let me check. I can't find it. Will you send it again? And, I've talked to the head of the quantum lab at Harvard, people all over the world, and I hear the same thing is infobesity is this thing that's killing us. So if we can make sense of that data, that's where the gold is, right? And the opportunity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's not only emails; it's also images, videos. So information is much broader than written information.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Structured and unstructured data, and you look at it. The amount of corporate data on the planet today is 123 zettabytes.
yeah,
Fabio, if we text CDs or DVDs and stack them one on top of another today, it would go 94 times between Earth and the Moon. So
yeah.
you think about this information overload. Um, 6 weeks ago, I haven't told you this story, but maybe this is interesting on the AI side, and I'll tell you how it relates to us. 6 weeks ago, my dog was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and they said she had a couple weeks to live. And I love my dog. My dad had passed away. I inherited her. We bought her for my dad, so we had a very tight connection. And I just, for the heck of it, went out and I started using these multi-agent large language models as a team. And I said, how can I save my dog? And it went out and looked at all the literature that it could find, and all of them, as a think tank, came back and said, there's really three places. One is at Yale, one is in Seattle, and another one that's located in Kentucky. And it said, and the one in Kentucky is experimental, so they could actually build a vaccine based on your dog's tumor. Right now, remember, this stuff is not widely known. So I said, what the hell? So I went to three vets: GP vet, oncological vet, and surgical vet. And the oncological vet, I went in and showed her the MRI and the X-ray. The surgical vet, I said, can you take the tumor out so I can send it to Kentucky and get it analyzed and build a vaccine to fight the cancer based on her tumor? Well, we did it. We injected the dog. Her cancer stopped. Now the situation, and now the next month, the next injection, this is only 6 weeks ago. The next injection is to reverse it. And that'll happen in 10 days. So there's stuff out there. You could die not knowing that these technologies are out there. In fact, somebody yesterday said the amount of advancements in health tech is going to be 100 times what it is now because of the LLMs, right?
Yeah. No, but definitely. I mean, I read an article by Kurzweil, who is one of the guru of the artificial intelligence, broadly defined. It was making this remark, was saying until now, average life expectancy increases by 2 weeks every year. By the end of this decade, so by 2030, we can expect that thanks to artificial intelligence, each year life expectancy for humanity increases by 1 year.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. I agree. Those technologies exist today. Let me tell you this. It's very interesting.
yeah.
So, with stem cells, right? Using AI
Mhm.
to, so we did it with stem cells also recently. This is a real study. The guy came in with 28%. He had kidney failure, which I believe this is a 4 level. At 28%, he went in and got a stem cell transfusion using embryonic stem cells. He went back to a stage 1, right? In terms of from a 1 to like a 4, from a 4 to a 1, and had heart attacks because of this kidney problem, and it went down through, and the cells uh, helped his heart. It actually went in and repaired the heart. And this is not 3 levels of separation away. My buddy happens to be the CEO of the clinic, so I got it like, I mean, it's amazing what's out there. The peptides in your brain. As we get older, the neurons and the myelin sheaths of the brain decrease. Imagine having the capabilities to stay sharp, to reverse things like Alzheimer's, or at least put a hold on them. But the technology exists, and the problem is we don't know what we don't know.
Oh, that's absolutely true. It's there are a host of new technique, innovation, treatment. That it's hard to keep track, and also the main impediment. It's not science, not research. It's not uh, progress in various fields. It's the regulatory framework, because before you can sell a new drug to the general public, you have to undergo the trial, phase 1, 2, 3, which might take years. Hopefully, even this process might be sped up because there are digital twins. In other words, each one of us will have an electronic or a cyber version of ourselves, and drugs, treatment, new discoveries will be tested on our twin
Now
before
I love
we
that.
will get it directly.
So about 8 months ago, I built a digital twin of myself. So we actually built one, but I didn't go down to the DNA, to the gene level of it, or the cell level. We just build it just as an avatar.
Yeah,
But I love that idea. That's really cool because you could test how it's going to impact without killing yourself, right?
that's exactly the idea. But tell me, who did it? It's interesting. Why don't you tell me more about this
Yeah. So I had
digital twin of yours?
yeah. So what we did is we have a lab that was one of our portfolio companies actually built it for us. But on the other side, I also own a company that does a lot of AI research. So we actually on our, it's a combination of multiple things, but we built it in a very short period of time. When I say short, less than 2 days. And
Wow.
this one was not, I love what you're saying. We did it on a cursory level to just use my voice and to semantically and from a sentiment standpoint understand who I am. So it would be me and a personality. But I love the idea physically. That's a different deal, right? So it's one thing to look like you, but it is a difference when it is you.
But besides, in this area, a whole new development will come from Neuralink, which is the startup by one of the startup set up by Elon Musk. They're putting probes into the cortex of individual, who have handicapped, and the results are quite amazing. The first guy who got this probe was a quadriplegic, so he could only move his head. Are shocking. I mean, if you hear his interview, uh, it's mind-boggling because he says that he could move, say, the chess pieces on a computer keyboard, thinking to move these pieces. So the thought in his head would produce a physical result on a computer.
Yeah,
And
that's the future, right? We're going to have, and then
yeah, we're going to be cyborgs.
well, I mean, you combine it with stem cells, right? So
Yeah.
you've got cancer, it can go down through and take care of the damaged area. You had a heart attack, it can go down through and take the damaged area of the heart and repair it. Lung capacity goes up, brain capacity goes up because as a kid, you start to lose cells. But when we put in these embryonic stem cells into your brain, it increases the biochemical activity of the brain. And all those things add up to making us live a better, higher quality of life.
Mhm.
And Fabio, in another 3 weeks, I'll be able to tell you firsthand because I've gone through the process myself.
Gary, I can't wait. If it's successful, if you tell me that you feel, I don't know, much younger, hey, I'm next in line, eh?
Well,
So,
it's kind of interesting, Fabio, because I've already been starting to do this stuff, right? And you come into
okay.
your 60s, like I am, and you go
Uh-huh.
down through, and you can already see some of those technologies that I've been using already impact, right? They do impact you. You can change
Hmm.
things, live a better quality life, be a lot smarter, a lot longer, more intelligent. And you're right about Neuralink. Well, imagine if you took University of Chicago PhD and just put it on a chip and download into your brain, so you wouldn't have to spend 6 years going through school. Well, then you go to Harvard and become a doctor. Then you go to Stanford or Bologna and you get all kinds of different things. I mean, imagine the possibilities. It's unbelievable.
No, indeed, there is an interesting story behind this kind of development. Um, Beyond Neuralink, there was a professor, a genius at Harvard. It was like the the dean of the Harvard chemical department. His name is Charles Lieber. He was working on nanofilament. So these are wires, the with the diameter of a few micron, so 1 millionth of a meter, and these filament can be used to connect biological parts with electronic parts. So it was the ultimate aim was to build, you know, a connection between a human body and peripheral electronic tools. The guy has been arrested. He was considered a genius. I mean, he's still considered a genius. You know, everybody was sure he would get a Nobel Prize. But one day he got arrested by the FBI because he was having dangerous liaison with the Chinese, who had set up for him a lab in Wuhan. There is also this dimension of competition between the West and China on these new developments, which will be
Well, I mean, imagine
extremely
you get
interesting.
superpowers, right? You start having the power of Nikola Tesla, but 1,000x, and a person has it, and they're all of a
Yeah.
sudden things change. And what I would do if I was the Italian government, European Union, or the US or anywhere, I would be investing in these technologies. And if I don't know about you, but I'd be thinking about how do we take care of climate change, right? I mean, you think about it. The average temperatures in Italy, I don't know if you know this, Fabio, but as early as
Mhm.
next year, the average temperature in Italy could drop 15 degrees Fahrenheit over a 10-year period of time because of meridional shift, right? The Atlantic current is
Yeah.
slowing down because of the Gulf Stream. I write a lot about it. It's just interesting, but people don't get it. The last time that happened was 10,000 years ago during the Ice Age. And people in places like Turkey were living underground. It was so cold. Now, how in the
Mhm.
world are you going to grow food? What happens to all the grapes in Italy? You know what I mean? It's crazy.
We'll need greenhouses.
Well, that's it.
For example, one of the largest producers of tomatoes is Holland, where the weather is not particularly favorable for this kind of crops. Yet they are the major or one of the major producers because they have mastered uh, the greenhouse technology. So, right,
no,
for every problem there is a solution.
well,
If
that's
you
the solution on
you
that
have the
side.
money to finance it.
The solution on that side, I remember it happened one time in the summer of 1816. I don't know if you know about this story. On Lake Como, Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein in Lord Byron's house. There was an
Yeah,
explosion in Mount Tambor, Indonesia, that sent volcanic
yeah,
ash around the world, right? I started
yeah,
reading the newspapers back in that time. In fact, I got a multi-agent LLM to go down and consolidate a lot of that information for me, and started looking at. There were riots. There was not food. Right, they killed the crops the
yeah.
first year. The second year, or the first year, they ate the animals. What happens the second year if there's no animals? Plants are gone. What happens? And those kind of things are just fascinating. And the other thing is, you look at the global weather and these hurricanes. The hurricanes, we used to have 150 mile an hour hurricanes. Now we're seeing things as high as 200 miles an hour. It's crazy.
No, but on this on this topic, I'm editing a book on climate change. So with several authors, and one of the authors has been writing a history of the world in connection with extreme or less extreme weather events. So going back to Roman times, and that's going to be very interesting because a lot of the major changes throughout history can be traced to changes in weather and climate. So
You know what
when the
happened?
book is ready, I will let you know.
I would love to. I mean, in 1816, there was a mass migration from
Yeah,
Europe to the U.S. I don't know if you know about it.
yeah,
It happened.
yeah. Well, that's when the Irish came to the U.S. That's
Irish
when
came
the
because of the potato
diaspora,
famine.
the Irish diaspora,
The
started.
the um, the Northern Europeans came over. They landed in the East Coast of the United States. There was no food. They kept
Yeah,
migrating west to Minnesota.
yeah,
Why? Because there's wild animals. You know what I mean? There was stuff to eat. And
yeah,
so you look at it, the kind of impact. It's just, I mean, as an economist, this stuff is just fascinating. You know?
yeah. And nobody has written this. I mean, probably there are papers, there are some research here and there, but I don't think, or at least to my knowledge, there is no coherent history of the effects of weather change, climate changes, and extreme weather events on humanity, on or certain parts of our world.
You know, I've written a few articles about it, but I haven't done them in. That's a good idea. I should do them. We did a long range weather forecasting company back in the early 90s that did a nonlinear model. And so I started getting really interested in that time. But over the last 3 years, I've written a few articles. I wrote about the summer of 1816 and also about the meridional shift. But I didn't write it as a technologist. I wrote it as an AI guy looking at it. I'm
Mhm.
just curious. It's just, it changed everything, right? There's no food. What happens? People get crazy. They riot.
Yeah, yeah. But also, what we call the barbarian invasions that ultimately destroyed the Roman Empire. Most likely were triggered by extreme weather events far away, in Russia, what is now Russia, or the plains of the Eurasian continent.
Yeah, no, you're right. And but it's interesting, is it, to look at it, right? I'm sure as a PhD, you look at those kind of things and the impact it has on economies too. It's profound impact. What about this? I got a question for you, Fabio. I'm
Sure.
just interested in your opinion. We're at the point where we're reaching peak oil, or we've reached it, peak oil. So, people don't realize when we don't have fossil fuels anymore, dead animals or plants to burn, you know, you've got 8.1 billion people on the planet. You got a lot of people living in places like Sweden, but if there's nothing to burn, nothing to keep you warm, what happens next?
But you see, I'm less worried about this peak oil story because I wrote a book long time ago on it was mostly on fracking, but I went through the history of the doomsday prediction on the end of raw materials, metals, oil, and so on. Yeah, the alarms on peak oil started in the 1830s. So throughout the last 200 years, there have been a series of warnings on the exhaustion of natural resources, oil, and so on and so forth. They never materialized. Actually, we keep discovering new oil fields, new oil reserves in probably the hydrocarbon era, the civilization that has hinged on hydrocarbons will not die, will not end because of lack of oil and gas, but because we'll find some other source of energy, which will be more efficient, more cheaper, probably cleaner. So for the time being, I wouldn't worry much. I remember when I was a kid, like in the early 70s, there was this Club of Rome, which was an organization, an institution, um, which was predicting the end of oil reserves in 30 years. Uh, that never materialized. But not only oil, also copper, iron, you name it. So they were they were warning about the doomsday that never materialized. So again, it's a recurrent theme in science or in the public debate. But I've grown skeptical about this warning.
I mean, but the other thing
People
is,
like
right?
to worry. It's easier to get attention, the public's attention, with negative or totally out of this world prediction, rather than by saying, no, everything is fine. Yes, we will have some problem here and there, and we'll be able to solve them. So people like to be scared, or if you prefer, they have a natural tendency to react to negative news rather than to good news.
Well, but I'm not saying it's.
Everybody in newspapers or
I
TV
know.
news
I agree they like it.
knows that.
I agree. I remember I met Greta Van Susteren, who's a was a CNN reporter on a plane, and I said, "Why don't you have good stories?" She said, "Because people don't read them." I'm not saying focus on the bad. I'm saying let's not be like ostriches and put our head in the sand and not do anything about it. Peak oil's Hubert said estimate in today it's estimated between 2030 and 2040, right? Heating peak oil, and so my thing is there's only so many dead plants and animals. We ought to be looking at renewable fuels in a very fast way now and supported by the governments to be able to come up with these things before you don't want to wait till it's too late. You want to make sure you're taken care of because, as you know, right, as an economist, the price of oil is going to go through the roof, and very few people at some point are going to be able to buy it because you're going to have a scarcity of the oil. So why not work on developing those things now? Here's a crazy thing. Get this, Fabio. Just in the state of Florida, until a couple of years ago, you weren't even allowed to have solar panels on your house, right? You weren't allowed to like sell it back. And why was that? Here you got the 300 days of sunshine a year, and you're not allowed to have solar panels. What's wrong with that picture? Huh? Sounds interesting, doesn't it? So now you're allowed to have them. Now people are using them and getting their electricity. They're taking care of their own electricity and not having to worry about it. We should all be encouraged worldwide. Don't you think? I spoke at the UN twice about technology as a tool for peace. And some of the things that I talked about are why don't we work together and figure out how to solve these problems instead of trying to kill each other, right? And 200 active conflicts on it. It's crazy.
But you see, solar and other renewable energies present problems not only on the production side, but also on the distribution side, because you need smart grids. Why? Because the say wind farms, if there is no wind, if suddenly there is no wind, it will cease to produce, and that production needs to be compensated somehow, instantaneously. Same story with the solar panels. If a cloud passes over your roof, the solar panel won't produce as much as before, and so that loss of power needs to be compensated instantaneously. So you need to look at an holistic approach. It's not only
Sure. I mean,
placing a solar
batteries,
panel on your roof
high
that
density
counts.
batteries,
Uh,
lithium fluoride batteries, chemical batteries.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but when you put batteries, then the cost of solar energy increases. I remember when I was working at the Oman Investment Fund, we wanted to invest in a spin-off of MIT, which had grid grade batteries. They had already developed this proof of concept. They had like a small factories where they would build this huge battery equipment. That was almost, well, it's not 10 years ago, let's say 8, 9 years ago. And still, this technology has not become mainstream, although it was at the time quite advanced. So evidently, it's not so easy. I'm not an engineer, so I can't pinpoint what the problem might be. But definitely, it's not an easy problem to solve. The
No,
Chinese have been working on batteries for now
forever.
15 years at least, haven't come up with a reasonable solution, viable solution.
We're coming up to the top of the show, Fabio. I really appreciate you joining us. So, what are your closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you?
Oh, I'm on all possible social network, social media. So I'm Scacciavillani on Twitter, Fabio Scacciavillani both on LinkedIn and Facebook. So they can write uh, to me on this platform, or my email is fabio.scacciavillani, so my name dot my last name at gmail.com. If you want to ask me anything, if you want to propose some investment deal, if you want to have any advice on artificial intelligence, here I am.
That's
Feel
great.
free to call me, feel free to contact me. I'll be happy to help if I can.
Fabio, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. It's good to see you, my friend. It's been a while. And to all my audience out there, thank you for joining one more time. GSD presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And we'll be back to you again with another exciting edition. Take care, everybody. Good seeing you.
Bye, Gary. All the best.